Gosh, what a great person to talk it out with. I wish we could do 3 hours with you. But Ramona Shelburne of ESPN on her way to Around the Horn right now. What an article, Ramona. Great, first and foremost. Great job. That was a really, really interesting read.
Thank you. I always love when we do these stories. I literally reported this right at the beginning of the season, right? Right as training camp was getting going and coming off that championship. Right, everybody's in a good mood. And it takes a little while, right? Like you're putting together a TV story, it's 7 minutes long, and a written piece of 3,500 words. And so, it takes a couple weeks to write and edit and get all that stuff done. And you're like, oh, it'll be all right. It's not going to get old or stale. It's not going to change too much.
And then come to find out, it changes a little bit. But any story that starts in Tiburon and involves the San Francisco Bay, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the city, it can't be that bad of a story, even though the Warriors have hit the skids.
Look, this is one of those questions where you say, is this the championship hangover? Is this just everybody needs to find their new flow? It's not like Klay forgot how to play basketball after last season. He didn't do as much during the offseason because he didn't want to get hurt again, right? That was how he got hurt the first time with the Achilles. They ramped him up slowly in training camp. He feels good, but everybody has this sort of, we're taking it slower, we're pacing ourselves this year. We're not going to worry about our regular season record as much as long as we get ourselves to a place where we feel good when it matters. And you can say that as much as you want, but it still sucks to lose.
Right.
It still sucks to be 6-9 and have a game where, how many points did Phoenix score last night without Chris Paul?
0-8 on the road, Ramona. This is, you know what I mean? It's one thing to be a little wobbly out of the gate. That's not what this feels like. So let's dive into it. I'm going to read directly from your article and let you react to this. Quote, Draymond Green apologized to Poole and the team and has returned to the court in fine form, but the issues underlying the conflict are still present. Poole and 27-year-old Wiggins are the future of the franchise. The only question is how clean the handoff to them will be. In your mind, based on your conversations, in what way is that incident affecting them now?
I wouldn't even say it's the incident. It's more the incident. It reminds me a bit of the year Draymond and Kevin Durant got into it after the Clipper games. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Where, that stuff is just there. People knew Kevin Durant was talking about leaving and sort of felt like he had one foot out the door all summer long. Draymond just kind of brought it out into the open. Right? Because he called him out on it and he said, why don't you just clarify? Why don't you just tell everybody what you're saying behind the scenes? Right? There was a sort of just bring out what is festering beneath the surface. Draymond has that way of doing that, right? And I don't think anything's festering to the words. I think it's just awkward. It's just, there's a feeling of you're trying to transition to the new, younger group. Everybody, the Klay and Draymond and Steph and Andre, those are the 4 players that built the dynasty. And there is going to be a handoff at some point, although Steph Curry will be the last one standing, okay? There's no doubt in anybody's mind of any of the pillars of the franchise, it will be Steph at the end, okay? But how long does everyone stay together? How do people transition roles? Do they take less money to stay? Does it get awkward for a minute here or there? Just Klay right now is in the starting lineup. I don't hear any talk of him not starting, but Jordan Poole did have a really good run last year as a starter. You have to, these kinds of things get uncomfortable, especially when you have Draymond has 2 years on his deal, but one's a player option next year. This year and next year the player option. Klay's got a couple years, but gets really expensive, and if he's not at the level he was before, then you would have not looked at that, except for the fact that they're going to have to pay $500 million in payroll and luxury taxes next year, right? So there's all these financial issues that are hitting the Warriors starting next year, and everybody feels it. Everybody knows it. The fight with Draymond and Jordan Poole, it wasn't about that. It certainly wasn't not about that.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and so I think that stuff it's just there. And it's a question of can they compartmentalize. Look, year that Kevin Durant and Draymond got into it, Kevin was leaving. It was a very joyless, yucky season. They still went to the finals and probably would have won if Klay and Kevin didn't get hurt.
And then this year's not feeling quite on the same trajectory. And how much of this do you think is affecting Klay, the whole idea of the transition and the fact that, Klay's always kind of shot himself out of these slumps, and yet this year it seems like the slump is deeper than ever before.
Yeah, the only thing, the thing with Klay is he's really pressing. You can just feel it, right? You can just feel him pressing out there because he wants so badly to contribute and to find his flow, and you have to shoot your way through it, right? He's always been able to do that. It's just taking longer this time, and that's sort of what happens when you're in your early 30s instead of your late 20s sometimes, or you're coming off of 2 catastrophic injuries. I mean, there's just, the longer the slump goes, the harder it is to bust out of it. Then you add in the team dynamics that we just talked about, like that. It's hard not to contribute to pressure. And so much of being Klay Thompson is his ability to compartmentalize and to not feel that kind of pressure, right? Like he is, a lot of what I wrote about in the story is Klay is about getting that feeling. There's this feeling that some athletes would call it being in the zone. I think for Klay, it's less about getting in a zone. It's just about really letting go of everything in life and being able to completely focus on playing basketball. And that, the way he does that is through movement. He's incredible at just keeping it moving. Like the guy does not sit still. And for 2.5 years, he had to sit still, rehabbing these injuries. And he learned a lot. He's stronger, but his nature and the way he generally tends to work through any kind of pressure or anxiety or whatever he's feeling is through movement. And right now it's not working yet. It's just not working yet.
Yeah.
You can get there, but because you have a whole 33 years of him showing you that he's been able to do that, it's just harder this time. It's harder this time.
Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, is with us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. So, Ramona, it was clear in reading this, you spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people in the organization, and you've been around them before through the years. So, what are your observations in terms of what is different, the vibe, the mood now versus before?
How deep you want to get, Mark? Are you feeling deep today?
Deep. I want it deep. I want to dig. I want to get in there and find out what's going on with these people.
All right. So here's what I see. You know that line? No man steps in the same river twice, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he's not the same man, and it's not the same river. Okay. As parents, we talk about. Well, I have 2 kids, and they were raised in the same household, and why is one so different than the other?
Yep.
And the expert was like, well, because they were not raised in the same household, right? One was raised when they were an only child, and the other was raised when they were the second child. And the parents are different, and the older child is different. And it's just, you can't get to the same, even though the Warriors want to play the same way that they always have, even though you want to just line it up and do what you did last year. Okay, run it back. Recast the core. The young guys around Steph and Klay and Draymond. It's a different mix every year, and they have to find it. And they're not the same guys. They're not the same team. And I'll say this: I think that what happened in the preseason, the fight with Draymond and Jordan Poole, but also the tape being leaked to TMZ, and I think leak is a stronger word, is maybe too strong of a word. Like somehow they obtained it, right? Whether it was from within the organization, from a vendor who was just in the building and happened to catch it on a monitor. We don't know. That's what they're investigating. It changed that feeling around the Warriors for me, at least. Like when I was there, felt a little less ease is the right word. Maybe there's a little more. They used to be real loose. They used to have a level of trust in each other and from up and down the organization. Just wasn't the same level of relaxedness or ease around everybody, which is to be totally understandable, right? Like, if you were in a place where a tape-like guy got leaked, you'd be looking over your shoulder, too. You'd be worried, too, like, who's not in it with us? Who's leaking it? I think the fight was an ugly incident. I think that people are still kind of processing recovery, although it feels less about that and more about just trying to find the right roles, the right mix, the right feeling again. With a, we don't see it as a new group, but it is a new group. And even the people who remain are different than they were before. Steve Kerr's different. Klay is different. Draymond's different. I mean, it's just a different vibe around it, and they have to find whatever this year's team is going to be.
And this year's team is defined by this whole two timelines notion, yet Wiseman now down in Santa Cruz. Kuminga barely plays, didn't play yesterday. Moody lightly playing as well. Can they really still try to thread this two timelines needle, or are they going to have to take a different approach as the season gets closer to the trade deadline? So
that's a big question. I personally think they keep up with the two timeline thing and you just have patience. I mean, you have to trust to quote the Sixers, you have to trust the process, right? Like you have to this is your plan. It doesn't always go in a straight line. It doesn't always go smoothly. And I think you have to try and find a way to trust it. Unless there are some huge red flags that you see. If there's some huge red flags, okay. But I haven't felt that or heard that. I think they're just experimenting and growing, and it's a little clunky right now. Is that the right word, clunky?
I like clunky.
I mean, that's at minimum. I think that's a nice word, yeah.
Yeah, the ball's not moving the way it normally does.
Right.
Like a lot of it, you can just look at like assist totals, look at pass numbers, like how many times is it moving in possession. Right now it kind of seems like, stuff's going one-on-one, but there were moments like that last year too. There absolutely were.
So real quick on that, Ramona, then to extend that, because this is the conversation we were just having, I've kind of arrived at look, you got to ride or die and let them try, and if they fail, they fail. Is that where the organization is, or do you foresee the potential of a big trade down the road if it's not working?
I would give it this year. I wouldn't do anything this year.
Yep.
Maybe after the season, if it's really not working and it's going to get real expensive, that's when I think you can look at that. But let's just remember how young James Wiseman is. He's so young, and you could have said this. If you looked at Jordan Poole at the same level of experience, you would have said the same thing. I don't see what are these guys seeing this guy, right? I mean, it's gonna let him play. You gotta let him keep learning and growing and developing. He's such a young guy, and I know it's hard because LaMelo Ball's out there and Anthony Edwards they're already kind of deep into their career and all that, but you gotta try to do that with James Wiseman and Moody and Kuminga. Like they're just scratching the surface here. And at the end of this year, maybe you have a long enough sample size. Maybe you feel like you've seen enough and you've evaluated enough. And the best organizations are able to make those talent calls early, right? They see enough and they're able to do enough early. But I don't think they're there yet. Zach Lowe and I did a podcast yesterday, and he was talking about you just can't waste Steph in his prime because he's so awesome right now. That's 100% that's true. But if you've said we're committed to the two timelines thing, you got to roll with it for a while.
Yeah,
give it a chance.
Ramona, just great stuff. Did you talk to Klay about the boat, or did you go on the boat?
I went on the boat.
You went on the boat?
Yeah.
What was it like on the boat?
He's good, man. He does, my favorite thing, Mark, is that he does all his own work. He doesn't have a deck crew. He's not hiring people to drop the anchor and be defenders. It's not like the show on Bravo. He really is Captain Klay. He's out there doing the dock lines, and he's out there dropping anchor, and he goes and fills up gas in Sausalito. He does everything. I go, you could hire people to do this for you. And he goes, yeah, but that's so fun. This is like being in the Boy Scouts.
I appreciate the Below Deck reference, too.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite shows.
Momo, I'm not a jealous person, but I'm a little jealous. You went on the boat.
It's pretty good. It's pretty fun. And my favorite part was Clay's like this guy who, I mean, he really goes on the boat. This isn't just like a hobby or a prop that he takes reporters out on interviews with. Like, he really enjoys going on the boat. He has like a bed down there, and you can tell like he obviously takes this boat out and goes for overnights wherever he goes.
Right.
Like he goes out to Catalina, and he has like a book on the nightstand, and he's got the New Yorker there. He's got a chess set. Like this is like his place. Like, he really is out on this, and he gets so excited about little things. Like, at one point we're sailing across the bay, and he goes, "Hey, there's a seal. Yeah, seal? There's a jellyfish. Look at the jellyfish." Like super excited about all the boat things.
Which I'm sure he sees probably every single time. But yeah. Gosh, being easily amused is a hell of a blessing in life. Ramona, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, that's Ramona Shelburne, ESPN. She went on the boat, Dibs.
Momo.